what if people recognize I'm a doctor, and will this have some impact on my career? So I had those, thoughts and emotions and inside of me, but it was the complete opposite. And I think it was the best decision I taken in my life. One, suicide is too much, but, every life matters, in this context. And the healthcare providers as caregivers, we are very good to take care of other people, but when it comes to ourselves, we're the last to go.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the channel, or welcome to the channel if you're new here. I have with us today Dr. Stephen Palanchuck, who's coming to us from Montreal, Canada. He is an internist and he is creating this app. It's extraordinarily innovative and more complex than I can share in a brief introduction. So I'm going to allow him to share more about it. But first, Stephen, welcome to the channel.
Hi, Jen, thank you for having me. It's an honor to share about my story. Yeah, I can present maybe a bit myself to your audience. So I'm a general internist working in the region of Montreal of Canada in Quebec. And since 2018, I've been working hard, and we do intensive care unit, hospital medicine. We also have an office. So we keep ourselves pretty busy.
And you created this master innovation.
Actually, so yes, this came to my mind after seeing that mental health problems are not really well covered for the healthcare providers. And actually, I started my practice in 2018, and something came in 2020 called COVID. I don't know if you heard about that, but
Nope, haven't heard
jokes
about it.
apart, yeah. So remember, in 2020 at the beginning, we were preparing ourselves for what was coming. And, in Italy, we were seeing those news in the media about people, they were missing ventilators to treat enough patients. And so we were in that state of mind back then, and we were preparing ourselves to receive this very sick patients. And so we were developing protocols and making sure that we could treat those patients in the right way. And back then, we didn't know about the disease. So it was a lot of unknown, a lot of stress, and a lot of pressure. We were preparing ourselves for this big crushing waves of very sick patients from Italy. And we were having to decide like who's going to get the ventilator, who's not going to get it. And those kind of choices as a caregiver, it's not something we ever want to have to make as a decision. So I had my first burnout in May of 2020, and I had to take one month off to like regain a bit of sense about myself and to learn more about balancing my personal and professional lives. And I'm still pretty young, but I was like only 2 years old in medical practice back then. And so this kind of self-discovery I had to make really helped me becoming a better physician back then. And I also started some medication and individual therapy with a psychologist, and really helped me like, putting the boundaries between my personal and professional lives. So when I came back, I was like, I had regained some strength, and to fight this disease and pandemic that was coming at us. So move forward a bit, and life happens, like we say. So at the end of 2022, I had another episode. Well, this one was a depression, and I had to really take time off from the hospital for like disconnecting altogether for a few months. During then, I kept going on the individual therapist, but also joined some group therapy. And to be honest with you, at first I was a bit not against that, but I had my fears, about being judged, and what if people recognize I'm a doctor, and will this have some impact on my career? So I had those, thoughts and emotions and inside of me, but it was the complete opposite,
Mhm.
and I think it was the best decision I taken in my life, because now, first of all, there was a lot of healthcare providers and doctors in particular, so I didn't feel alone being, just admitting that I'm having challenges with mental health and anxiety. But I felt as people were understanding me for the first time and really took the time to create this safe space where everyone can share about their story without any fear of judgment and stigma. Because even right now, there's a lot of stigma that's affecting like the medical community because people fear that this could have any impact or on their reputation, and there's a lot of barriers that we put, or walls that we put in front of ourselves. And I think I have learned to let down a bit of those barriers and give access to my inner thoughts and emotion to people around me. And there was a therapist who told me something that was very interesting. He says, Stephen, you have a voice, you have something to say. Why don't you use it more? Why don't you share
Mm.
more about what's going on with you? And it just stayed with me. And I said, oh, well, I do have a voice. I think I have something to say. And I think people are interested, just realizing that doctors too can have problems, and we are humans treating other humans, And so it's just completely normal to have some complications of life. Let's just put it that way.
Yeah.
So a few months later, I came back at work, and I was like, again, I had some kind of epiphany that, oh, I think maybe that my role is to transmit this knowledge about myself that I gained through therapy with my colleagues. And while I was, thinking about that, going through that process of coming back, unfortunately, I had two colleagues, doctors in our hospital who committed suicide. Um, and it was a lot to take in. And
Yeah.
because one of those doctors, actually, she um, came to the hospital to replace me, basically because I was on a leave of absence because I was sick. And she was going also through mental health issues that we have learned later. But you can imagine the sense of guilt I had. I'm taking care of myself. I'm taking some time off, and the person who comes in to replace me commit this kind of action, and it was a lot to take in. And
Yeah.
in those months also, there was another older colleague, and they we never could have guessed what was going on in those people's minds. And they were both smiling achievers.
Mm.
We never could have guessed that something this like this kind of suffering was under the surface. And that was the last like click for me, that I have to take action. This cannot stay inside of me, and I have to, share what I learned, because one suicide is too much, but every life matters, in this context. And the healthcare providers, as caregivers, we are very good to take care of other people, but when it comes to ourselves, um, we're the last to go, And like they say in the plane, just in case of emergency, put your oxygen mask first. Then I think you cannot pour from an empty cup. If I, as a person, I am not happy with myself, or have some issues that are not resolved, like how can we expect of me that I can take care of some other people in a real, empathetic, compassionate way? I don't think that's possible. I would like some month where I was going through some challenges. I went some on automatic pilot, you know, and I felt a bit disconnected, and I had this, as they call it, compassion fatigue, you know,
Yeah.
that we lose a bit of patience and the this kind of connection between humans that made me go into medicine in the first place. I had lost this kind of magic or passion in me. And that's when I understood back then that, okay, it's time to go. It's time to like think about me, gain some strength and tools to take care of myself in a way that can be sustained in the future. So this idea of, you know, the inner voice and the sharing between colleagues and this kind of peer support system that we can have in a group therapy, that's really a safe space. That's what I wanted to recreate with the use of the technology.
Mm.
So the idea of my inner voice came back then, and I started to do some research, and I saw a lot of, you know, AI right now. It's everywhere. If people are on LinkedIn, it's only AI, AI, AI everywhere. It's
Hmm.
the talk of the town. But I told myself, how can we use this as a tool that's not going to replace the human connection? Because
Hmm.
people, where they don't feel good, they don't want to talk to a machine. They don't want to talk to a robot. They want to feel understood, to feel heard, to feel validated in their feelings. Because what we go through as caregiver, I call this common trauma,
Yeah.
because caregiving is some kind of trauma, in my opinion. And we have to first acknowledge that we all go through in different ways, but we all go through this kind of trauma together. So by first acknowledging that this is happening, and we went through a lot, and we went through a pandemic together. Now we're on the other side. Like, how can we work together as a community in order to improve the mental health of everyone? So the app is still in pre-development right now, and the goal will be to have some kind of one-stop shop where people can go to an ecosystem of mental wellness apps that would be powered by artificial intelligence, that we would train to recognize patterns in the data of the user, meaning that we could recognize some sleep deprivation or data from the biometric, like some internet smart watches that can indicate some level of stress. Of course, there would be journaling, personalized mindfulness exercises that would be tailored to the needs and context of each and every one users. But that's one part, one level of care. That's the self-help or self-care. And then there's the peer support, because as a community of healthcare providers, I think we have to learn from one another. And the best way to do so, and that's another thing I learned in therapy, is when we are in a group therapy and we share about some feelings, we and when we talk, actually, we talk to the people, but we're talking to ourselves too.
Yeah.
And this kind of caring for others in this context of therapy was therapeutic for me too. So that's why I wanted to recreate in this ecosystem where people can feel safe to share. So that means that all the interactions are must be anonymous and confidential, but we use the power of AI to remove all the sensitive information or information that could give access to some hints of who you are, where you work, what's your gender, etc. And but we can still understand the core of the message. We can analyze the feelings of the message, and in real time we can connect users on different algorithms. It can be mentorship, meaning there's a younger physician or even a medical student, because I think in med school we are taught, I think, some um, how should I put it? Like during the residency, I had some tough years, as many of us had, and some mentors are more on the, well, that's just how it is. That's life as a doctor. You know, suck it up, like push your head down and just keep going. But I think we have to change that as a community. First, we have to recognize that we all share this common desire to care for others, but in order to achieve that, we have to recognize that if we're not good inside, if we don't feel heard or understood, we won't be able to go through all those years of medical studies and residency and feel like we belong. And there's also a lot of imposter syndrome, that how can I be a caregiver if I don't feel good inside? Like, am I at the right place? And
Mhm.
so that's all what we want to do by connecting users with more experience, life experience. Not only the, age is just a number, but sometimes the challenges a medical student would go through or resident would go through, well, another physician somewhere has gone through that. And so we can ask the users, well, do you want feedback from someone who went through the same thing as you? And then if the person says yes, we can connect them with some personalized mentor they would have that could give them some advice on this specific situation they are going through. So to give you an example, well, if you have a young medical student and she has some anxiety because she has to study a lot and she has to manage her time and prepare for exams, then she could enter some journaling in entries in the app, have some personalized exercise that would be adapted to her context as a medical student. But then, if she wanted to have some feedback about other peers, then she could get connected to me or another, like, more experienced physician who's gone through that. And with the years, going on, we get some perspective in life. And sometimes, even right now, I'm telling myself, I'm realizing things that, if only had I known that before, or if only someone told me that before. And
Mhm.
I don't want to regret anything,
Yeah.
because the life events that have happened to me made me the person I am today. I'm a husband, I'm a doctor. I try to keep a balance between, all the spheres of my life. But we have to recognize that all the doctors together, or nurses, or healthcare providers, we are stronger as a group than as individuals.
Mm.
And we don't feel sometimes that people can understand, and sometimes we even think that people are not going through those challenges. But uh, let's be honest, everyone does. Okay, it's just a matter of which mask you're going to choose in the morning when you go out of your door. What are you going to choose to show the world? And the inner voice concept is to acknowledge that each individual has a void, each has a valid point to share. And I think that if we just take a moment to stop, talk, and learn from one another, there would be so much less trouble in the world.
Thank you so much for sharing
And
that. Yeah, I just wanted to pause to
you're welcome.
appreciate and say I'm so sorry for the losses. I have deep feelings towards supporting you in that. And you mentioned the guilt. When I was in residency, not to take away from those stories, but to share, like the value of you sharing that with me is I dealt with survivor's guilt a lot. When I was a resident, I was suicidal and unwell, and two people very close to me passed away who I wouldn't have expected. And one of them was my co-resident, and the other one was my ex-boyfriend. And then I had an Air Force commander who was very cheery. He ended up getting killed in a car accident. And all of those individuals, you know, their life circumstances and their death were different. Nothing I did could have changed it. Nothing you did, you know, could have changed that person's situation. You didn't create the environment they were working in, right? Your necessity for taking time off for yourself self showcases for me just how challenging of a situation it was to work in that environment and how many people needed support. And to your point of the stigma, right? You sharing this out loud and vulnerably is going to help other people to share their story. And you're creating such meaning from that deep, what I palpate to be painful experience and life experiences. And I just wanted to really appreciate you for sharing all that.
Well, you're welcome. And I think you touch a good point when you talk about vulnerability, because vulnerability is a choice. You know, we can choose to be vulnerable or not. And I think that making this choice has made me a better physician. And because now I can have real empathy. It's not that I didn't have empathy with my patients before, because I did, but now the sense I'm giving to those interactions with my patients is totally somewhere else. And when people tell me that they are going through some challenges, I take a moment and I listen. And I take the time with my patients. And some are a bit angry because I'm running late in some of my clinics, and I apologize to those patients. But I think everyone deserves their time to be able to share, you know, about what's causing them suffering. And I think to be vulnerable, we have to be honest. And the first person we have to be honest with are ourselves.
Mhm.
And I think we're so good to trick our brain into, you know, pushing our head down and just pushing through. But it's not how it's supposed to be, in my opinion.
Yeah.
It should be life should be about the connection and the sense and the purpose we can get from advocating for other people. And I saw your personality on your LinkedIn profile, by
Mm,
the way, and I am too an advocate. And I told myself, well, isn't that awesome? Because I think the work you do too is, you know, giving back to the community what you have learned. And I think
yeah.
that's part of our mission as advocates.
Yeah, I think also I learned, and you can share with me how it reflects on your own life or not, but I held myself in isolation for a really long time. I was medically discharged from the military after I sought mental health support. And I made that mean a lot about my worthiness and value. And then I left surgery, and that I made mean a lot about my worthiness and value. So for 5 years, I thought I was worthless. I didn't matter. I had so much guilt. I was so isolated. I was barely surviving. And I knew I couldn't live like that. I wasn't going to survive if I kept going at that rate. And so I just one day just had to let my story out with no expectations. But I did think people might judge me and think less of me and whatnot. But I thought if I share my story and it saves one person's life, it was worth it, not realizing how much sharing my story was saving my own life.
Mm-hmm.
And so now anytime I feel that guilt, shame, like let's isolate it and hide, I'm like, nope, right? That's where I'm like, needs to be said, because had I known, you said, if we knew the lessons now that we knew then, had I knew I wasn't the only one struggling, had I know the self-doubt was common, had I know other people are questioning if they're in the right room, do they deserve to be there, right? I wouldn't have thought it was all just me, and that
Mm-hmm.
I was the only one that couldn't cut it, that I was the only one having problems and was a weak link. And I'm wondering how many people are suffering much more than they need to, because they are kind of exacerbating the suffering with the pain of thinking it's just them and there's something wrong with them, rather than saying, there's so many things that are preventing people from living in their true values and honoring their true selves in the world today, and in medicine in particular. And can we just say, like, the depression, the anxiety, the things that are coming out might be normal human responses to the things that are actually out of alignment to what their soul and what their heart is desiring, and also what our brains need, like sleep, proper fuel, time to recover. It's just, medicine's full of so much stress. And then I think we are typically really um, perfectionistic and self-critical, which could exacerbate that internal dialogue of never enoughness. And then if you
Mm-hmm.
had childhood wounds based, on top of that, it's just so much trauma occurs. And to just hear people talking about it and give them resources, right? Your app provides resources and meets people where they're at, and the community to say, here are resources and you're not alone.
Yeah, exactly. And I think you touch on a good point also, that the vulnerability that we we can choose to have or not makes us, I think, better caregivers. And I think if and I was a patient, and I when I saw some therapists being vulnerable with us, it really connected to me, because I told myself even caregivers need help. And then it was another context. Right now I'm doing good, and I have all those awesome projects that I'm working on, and this gives me some kind of purpose, to go forward. But now I'm understanding that, okay, I am a caregiver, I am in the right place. I love my job,
Mm,
and I love my patients. And I think that other colleagues should be able to feel the way I feel right now.
mm,
Because if we take the time to acknowledge that, okay, it's okay first not to be okay,
yeah.
first of all. And after this being said, then how can we work as a group to be sure that something changes? Because there's what I call the execution gap in, and that's very interesting for caregivers, because we have all this knowledge, about treatments and the diseases and the mental health in general. And when we go through the med school, we learn all those things about the neurology and the biology, and then we connect that to like real life patients, and we try to make sense out of that. So yes, the execution gap is knowing what to do. I know what will make me feel better.
Mm-hmm.
And you talked about, the brain fuel and the sleep and exercising and eating good and managing the stress and, talking to people. We all know that. We all know what to do. It's not a matter of knowledge, because in some therapies, I could have given the conference myself, not to brag, but I knew
Yeah.
everything that was being said on screen. And but then I told myself, then why don't you? What's what's making you, choosing not to take action?
Mm,
And this thing I'm still working on. I'm still learning how to, talk to this small voice I have in my head that sometimes is saying what I want to hear, and sometimes it's saying something that uh, I'm not happy. I'm thinking, but those are my thoughts. Those are my
Mhm.
emotions. I just have to welcome them and let them be, you know. And to me, there's no such thing as a positive or negative emotions. All emotions are valid, you know, and they can be comfortable or uncomfortable.
Mhm.
There's a difference, you know, because sadness sometimes, and you know, I don't know if you saw the movie Inside Out 2 from
I haven't
Pixar.
yet. I keep hearing about it though, so I have to watch it.
Yeah, but I do suggest that you watch this because this is one of the takeaway of the movie without revealing much of the story, but is that every emotions are valid and we can learn from connecting those emotions with thoughts to give sense about ourselves and the core values we want to have for ourselves and the purpose, you know. And I think building this kind of character and resilience, it takes time. It takes efforts, conscious efforts, because the easy way is just to let things go by themselves. And procrastination for the work life is a thing, but procrastination for your own well-being is another one. Because,
Yeah.
like I said, we know what to do. Like I see my gym bag on the floor and the
Mhm.
gym bag is talking back at me and
Mhm.
say, "Oh, you should go." But then my voice in my brain say, "Oh, you had a long day. You're tired. You should just rest," you know? And this is the kind of dialogue also I want to recreate with the power of AI in the app because this voice that we all have inside of us is neither positive nor negative, but
Mhm.
the what this voice says, we have to listen, we have to acknowledge it's there, and we have to learn to have this kind of compassionate inner dialogue with ourselves, to take a pause and listen, and to sometimes take a break, you know, disconnect, and what I call connecting the dots, you know,
Mhm.
and looking back at your week, or if you had a tough week, a tough day, then just acknowledge, okay, this was a tough day, you know, and it's okay, and tomorrow will be different. And sometimes there are life situations that are out of our control that we cannot change, but we have to accept that we cannot change that. And
Mhm.
as a general internist, I always want to understand and know about everything. I wanted to understand everything that's happened to be, like you said, from my childhood, you know, and why am I like that? Why do I feel like that? Why do I think like that? But at the end of the day, it's not important to know why. It's this has happened. This is part of me. But now, how can I take that and move forward?
Mhm.
And how can I um someone said to me, you have to learn to walk with your baggage, like, or let's just say your luggage right beside you, and not like putting on yourself
Yeah.
and like wanting to open the suitcase and going through, like when you
Mhm.
see those people at the airport, we kind of judge them, but we do that sometimes. We want to understand that what happened, and then we scratch until we try to understand. But at the end of the day, we will never understand completely why some stuff happened to us. And sometimes life happens, and that's just the way it is, and we have to learn to take that, move forward. And I think also, like I said, the power of connection and
Yeah.
the human touch. I think that's part of my mission and my purpose is to understand that we are part of something bigger than us. And this kind of network of compassion that we can create, I think that's how we should move forward. And if, like I said, if someone just could take a moment to pause, take a break, listen to what other people have to say, we would not be like where we are right now.
Mhm. And everything you said was so matter of fact, right? Like it showcased to me that you've done a lot of self-reflection, self-work, processing through this. I don't know if it's reframing. I've certainly, the things that you just let off go off your tongue, like of course it's like second nature to know that, are not things that many of us have had the opportunity to learn. Maybe we're just learning them, such as honoring all of our emotions, that emotions are not good or bad. Like you said, some can be comfortable or uncomfortable. And I'm curious to know, at what point in your life is this something that you've always kind of been self-reflective and had some self-awareness, or what do you feel has been most helpful along your path to develop these understandings?
That's a good question. I think I have always been self-aware, but I was the master of choosing the mask I wanted to choose in the morning. When I went out of my house, I decided what kind of person I wanted other people to see.
Mm-hmm.
But now it's this is conscious. And the thing you said about reframing is actually totally right. In um, some therapists said to me, like, if you want to have different results, you have to try different things. And this is so like, oh yeah, of course. But then I was thinking, well, why are you not making any change? And if you're not making any changes, why are you expecting that this time it's going to be different? It's not going to be different. Because if I keep doing the same things again over and over, I'm going to have the same results over and over.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And this kind of self reflection that, okay, I am not perfect, and that's fine. And I can choose to show a side of me that gives access to other people to what's going on in like with me. And I think we have to learn also to surround ourselves with people that can help do that and achieve that. And I have to acknowledge that I am privileged because I have I have good revenues. I have a good profession. I have a network, a family, friends, colleagues that were all around me to help and support me. And I recognize that's not the case for everyone going through some mental health problems. So I'm thankful and grateful to be able to say that I was not alone going through that. I thought first I was, but at the end of the day, I was not alone.
Mm.
And I think we have to sometimes recreate good conditions in order to build this kind of network. And sometimes it's not easy because reaching out to people, especially at the place of work, like when and where is it appropriate to say that we're not okay?
Yeah.
Of course, it's not going to be in the middle of a meeting with your
Yeah.
boss and like other colleagues. There's a place and time to say everything. And I think, in my opinion, everything can be told, but there's a time and there's a place and there's a way. And we have to make sure that the other person in front of us is open to have feedback, because sometimes I was not open to have feedback because I was just trying to tolerate myself and live with myself. So if I cannot like tolerate myself, how can you expect me to like be open to have some feedback? So I had to, put some things in order in my head and reframe and builds new neurological connections, because the brain, when we're used to do the same thing over and over and over again, then those neurological pathways, they are like um, walking in the snow. It leaves mark, but then if you keep walking at the same place, you will see this path, in the
Yep.
snow that's easy to take, that we've been there before, we know the
Mm.
place, it's familiar. Of course I'm going to choose the path of least resistance, or the least effort. And that's another thing that I have to acknowledge is I am lazy, as a person. If I can choose to make less effort, I will choose that option. I value my comfort. So going out of my comfort zone was a big thing for me. And I have to admit I have social anxiety.
Mm.
I was um, bullied when I was younger, as a child and as a teenager too. And that's when I learned to shut myself, to put some walls, to present to the world a view of myself I want them to see, you know. So when I do that, I keep control, you know.
Yeah.
I think I am in control because I'm showing just a part of me that people will have access to. And back then, I thought that if I did that, then people couldn't come and, you know, hurt me or attack me. But what I came to realize is by building those walls, I just built walls all around myself, and I was alone in my home, own little castle, you know. And building this fort, it can be protective, but it can become destructive.
Mm.
And I think that I had to learn that I do have a voice. I have something to say, something to share. And if I do it the good way with the good people at the good moment, I'm only gonna feel better at the end of the day. And I'm gonna help people feeling better. And sometimes, you know, people, you know, share about their issues, and there's not much we can do because sometimes life is terrible and there's life events that we cannot even begin to understand what another person went through. And we have to acknowledge that I'm not here to say that I understand what you're going through because I cannot understand what really you're going through because this is your life, this is your context, this is, you know, your baggage you're having. So, but I can be here and I say that I support you, what you're going through. Your emotions are valid. You have every right to feel the way you're feeling. And I think that kind of support is more helpful. And at the end of the day, when I put myself in this compassionate position, like I told first, I'm talking to myself
Yeah.
basically. And I had some colleagues who were going through rough times and you know, beginning your career as a physician, the first few years, there's a lot of stress and we have to adapt. And the resilience is like we have a lot to, you know, we've been studying so many years, and it's like you're ending this marathon. And like what I said first is that, you know, we're going through med school, and then we have to go on the wards, and then the internship in US and residency and the board exams and finding a job, like all those milestones were pretty much set in stone when I first put my foot into med school because it was some kind of treadmill, like, and
Yeah.
then it just I went away with that without. I had some choices to make, but everything was organized for me that here are the milestones that are coming, and you know. But then when you're done and you've been, you know, working so hard to get there, and you get at the end of this marathon, and I'm like, what's next? Okay, that's life, that's my career. But then after that, you know, those thoughts come in, and oh, well, the next milestone is the retirement, and then it's death, you know. And this gives some urge to live, you know, that okay, I have putting myself like in the last position because I wanted to work on my career and everything. Now that's done, I have it, I'm happy. Well, I should be happy. Why am I not, you know?
Hmm.
I think some Olympians or like very advanced like sports, they go a bit through the same thing. We are so intensively like committed to what's driving us, but when it's done and okay, we can say check, achieved. We have to find something else to move us forward. And like I said, I love my job, and The first few years were rough, but at the end of the week, I knew I did a good work. I knew I did my best. And sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. But I was okay to live with that. But I had to find another purpose, and I think the the inner voice project I have give me this kind of purpose of giving back to the community that's helped me and making sure that no doctor or anyone, doesn't matter, anyone should have to go alone through those dark thoughts and go and think about, ending their own life. And this is like very important to me. And I think that if people can just realize that we can learn from one another, uh, the purpose, like I can say, okay, I've done it. And now my job is done for real. And I can have like a lot of impact as a general internist
Mm-hmm.
treating the population and the patient. But I think um, the regain, like giving back to the community and building this community, this network of caregivers and connect them together in a way that's going to feel safe and useful. I think this is my purpose.
Wow. Thank you for sharing all of that. I didn't know many people are going to resonate with so many things that you said. There's a term called the arrival fallacy. Have you heard of that terminology?
No.
It was coined by I think Dr. Tal Ben Shahar. It's this belief like we'll be happy when we reach a certain destination. For most of us, it's like attendinghood. And once we get there, we realize that that's not providing sustainable happiness or like what's next, like what now? And for you to showcase that and for you to have intentionally chosen your what now, right? Like to face that feeling and say, I'm going to create meaning and I'm going to ask myself what now and develop what you kind of needed along the way, which was the community to hear people talk about what you were struggling with so that you knew you weren't alone and to provide resources to create meaning from all the things, the things that were really painful, but also just the things that you've learned through your tremendous insight. I feel the power that this mission is going to create, the impact it's going to have. And you shared you're in the pre-development stage. So let's hear a little bit more about how we can support the mission or tell us a little bit more about where you're at with that.
Well, right now, I think people can look for the LinkedIn page, and I share some articles about advocating for mental health for all the caregivers and give us some tips about what we can do, like in very, very pragmatic way. Like, here are some useful steps you can implement right now in your life to have some meaningful changes. And on this page, people can subscribe and to have some more information, and I would be happy to connect with them. And I'm also welcoming anyone who's crazy enough to join me in this kind of venture. And happy also to network with people in business or artificial intelligence or mental health. And really, I want to have the feedback of as many people I can have to design some kind of ecosystem that's gonna make the most sense I can, and so that people can feel that it's really helping them.
Beautiful. You've shared a lot of takeaways. If you were speaking directly to the audience right now, what is one message you want to make sure that they hear?
Your voice matters.
Mm.
Let it be heard. Take a pause to listen to it, and seek clarity, because the voice, there's so much noise right now in our lives. If we seek clarity and we take a moment to pause and listen, all the answers are there. I knew what to do. I just
Mm.
had to do it.
I knew what to do. I just got the chills. I knew what to do. I just had to do it. Oh, wow. Well, this was amazing conversation. I've enjoyed learning about where you are in your journey and all of the reflections that have led you to provide such extraordinarily valuable insight. I know your message is going to help so many, and I am looking forward to continuing to support you on the mission. I will share the LinkedIn page down below. And is there any other way that people should connect with you?
Right now, it's the main way because we are still developing the
Mhm.
website and all the social media campaigns. But I would be happy to have some feedback of anyone who's had some thought about this.
Perfect. Well, you heard them, folks. Make sure you can share the comments down below, or also make sure to follow on LinkedIn, provide your input. And also, I heard about that collaboration. There's so many different arms that can provide input to this mission. And Stephen, I just really appreciate you being here and giving me some of your time today to share your voice.
Well, that's been a pleasure and an honor. And if I can do anything to, share a bit more about my story, I would be happy to connect again and maybe share some other thoughts I have.
Absolutely. I will accept that. And I look forward to our future conversations. So, for both you and the audience, this isn't a goodbye, but till next time, thanks for being here.